All right. Get ready to dive into a book that's going to totally flip the script on how you think about love.
I love that.
It's Erich Fromm's The Art of Loving. And don't worry, this isn't some cheesy self-help thing, you know?
Oh, got it all.
This is deep stuff.
Right.
We're talking mind-bending insights here.
It's funny you say that because Fromm actually argues that love isn't something you just stumble into, like you're walking down the street and you find love like a lucky penny.
Right.
He says it's an art form,
Mm.
something you actually have to cultivate and practice. Just like, you practice playing an instrument or painting.
Yeah.
It's an active process.
Okay, I'm already hooked.
Yeah.
Because I think most people, they think finding love is the hard part, right?
Right.
But what you're saying is like, Fromm is saying the real work begins when you actually find it.
Exactly. And to understand that, it's helpful to know a little bit about Fromm's background.
Okay.
He was a social psychologist writing in the 1950s.
Okay.
So he's looking at love through this fascinating lens of human behavior and societal influences. And his big idea was this. At the core of human existence, like the very root of who we are, is this deep-rooted need to overcome separateness.
Overcoming separateness. So it's like we all crave that feeling of truly connecting with someone, breaking out of the bubble of our own experience, right?
Right, exactly. And Fromm argues that all of our attempts to escape that feeling of isolation, whether it's, jumping from one relationship to the next, chasing fleeting highs, whatever it is,
Yeah.
even just conforming to the crowd, he says those are just temporary Band-Aids.
So we're all running around with these metaphorical band-aids trying to cover up this deeper wound of disconnection.
Yeah, trying to patch it up.
Is there a way to actually heal that wound?
He calls it mature love.
Okay.
And he's very clear that this is not about needing someone to complete you or, falling head over heels in this kind of, whirlwind romance. He says it's about what he calls standing in love, which sounds a lot more intentional, right?
It does. It's like you're making a choice to show up, to be present in that love, rather than getting swept away by emotion, like you were saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think about it. I mean, I'm sure you've had those experiences maybe where you felt the difference between a fleeting infatuation and a love that deepened over time.
Right.
That feeling of really truly seeing someone and being seen in return, and that's a glimpse of mature love.
Okay. That makes sense. It's like, the difference between a sugar rush and a nourishing meal.
Well, yes, exactly.
So how do we get there? How do we cultivate this mature love that Fromm's talking about? So we're on this quest for mature love,
Right.
but like, where do we even begin?
Well, it's not like he hands us a map, right?
Right.
He doesn't say, here's the path, start walking.
Exactly.
But he does give us some pretty valuable tools, though.
Yeah.
Like one of the things that Fromm talks about are these different, what he calls shades of love that we experience.
Okay.
Like brotherly love, motherly love, self-love, even love of God.
Okay.
And he suggests that understanding these different facets can actually help us cultivate that mature love that we're looking for.
Okay, so it's not just about finding that one perfect romantic relationship.
Right.
It's about developing our capacity to love in all areas of our lives.
Exactly. He sees these different types of love as interconnected, like threads in a tapestry.
Mm-hmm.
They all contribute to our overall ability to connect, deeply and authentically with others and with ourselves.
I like that analogy. So, let's unravel these threads a bit. Like, what does Fromm say about, say, brotherly love?
Yeah, so he actually considers brotherly love to be kind of the foundation,
Okay.
It's that basic human connection, that sense of care and respect for all fellow humans, simply because they are human. Think of it as that feeling of shared humanity, like we're all in this human experience together.
Yeah, like we're all in the same boat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, it's that sense of recognizing that, beneath our differences, whether it's our backgrounds or beliefs, whatever it is, we all share this common human experience.
Right, and I can see how that would be foundational, right? Because if you can tap into that sense of shared humanity, it's easier to approach others with empathy and understanding, even if they're different from you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Fromm argues that this kind of love, this ability to see beyond our differences and recognize our shared humanity, it's essential for building a more just and compassionate world.
Yeah.
It's not just some, nice to have.
It's making me think about those everyday encounters we have, like the barista at the coffee shop, the person on the bus, even someone you disagree with online. Are we approaching those interactions with a sense of brotherly love?
That's a powerful question to consider, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
about shifting our perspective from us versus them to we. And Fromm believes that this shift is not only possible, but essential for our collective well-being.
Okay, so that's brotherly love. What about this idea of self-love? That feels especially relevant these days with all the pressure to be perfect and put ourselves out there on social media and everything.
Yeah, Fromm had some really insightful things to say about that, even back in the 1950s, which is kind of amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
He believed that you can't truly love another person if you don't love yourself first. And he wasn't talking about narcissism or egotism or any of that.
Right.
He was talking about a deep and genuine acceptance of who you are, flaws and all.
So it's about recognizing your own worth, your own value as a human being.
Precisely. And that includes accepting your imperfections, your limitations.
Yeah.
It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and compassion that you would offer to someone you love deeply.
Right. That can be tough, though, right?
Yeah.
To quiet that inner critic. Oh, absolutely.
And embrace all parts of ourselves,
It's a practice.
especially in a world that often feels, very judgmental.
It is. It's a continuous journey. But Fromm believed that cultivating self-love was essential not only for our own well-being, but also for our ability to love others authentically.
So if we're constantly criticizing ourselves, judging ourselves, we're likely to project that same energy onto others.
That's exactly right. It's like that old saying, hurt people, hurt people. When we haven't done the work of healing our own wounds, of accepting ourselves fully, we're more likely to lash out, to judge, to sabotage our relationships.
Yeah, it makes you realize how interconnected all of this is.
It really is.
Our own self-love or lack thereof directly impacts our ability to love others in a healthy way. Absolutely. And that's why Fromm places so much emphasis on the inner work, on the self-reflection and personal growth that are necessary for cultivating mature love in all its forms.
Okay, we've talked about brotherly love, self-love. Fromm also talks about motherly love. What's that all about? Is he
Yeah.
saying, like, we should all channel our inner nurturer?
Well, he uses motherly love as an example of what he calls unconditional love.
Yeah.
That deep, unwavering care that a mother ideally, has for her child, regardless of their achievements or behavior.
Right.
Like that love without strings attached.
Unconditional love, that's a tall order.
Yeah.
I feel like so many relationships these days are conditional.
Yeah.
We love people as long as they meet certain expectations, as long as they make us feel good.
You're hitting on something really important. Fromm believed that this kind of unconditional love, the kind that nurtures and supports without judgment, is essential for human flourishing. And he worried that our modern world, with its emphasis on individualism and achievement, was eroding our capacity for this kind of love.
It's like we're all so focused on what we can get from others, what they can do for us, that we've forgotten how to simply love without strings attached.
And Fromm would argue that this kind of transactional love, this keeping score of who's giving and receiving, ultimately leads to emptiness and dissatisfaction.
Yeah, because it's not truly fulfilling.
Yes.
It's always contingent on something.
Exactly. True love, for Fromm, is about giving freely without expecting anything in return.
Right, which again, easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a culture that often glorifies, self-interest.
It is a challenge, but it's a challenge that Fromm believes is worth undertaking if we want to experience the kind of deep and lasting love that we all crave.
Speaking of challenges, what about romantic love? Fromm definitely doesn't shy away from the complexities of that arena, does he?
No, not at all.
So where does this whole mature love thing fit into the picture when it comes to romantic relationships?
Right.
Because I feel like Fromm, he's not buying into that whole find your soulmate, live happily ever after narrative.
No, you're exactly right.
Right.
He dismantles that fairy tale pretty effectively.
Yeah.
Like one of the things he points out is how that whole searching for the one mindset, can actually sabotage our chances at real love.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's like we're so busy looking for this, perfect prepackaged partner that we miss out on the opportunity to actually build something real with another human being,
Yeah, it's like we're expecting to find love fully formed.
Right.
Like ordering takeout.
Yes.
Instead of realizing it's a dish we need to prepare together,
Exactly.
With all its messy and delicious complexities.
I love that analogy. And that's where Fromm's idea of standing in love versus falling for someone becomes so crucial.
Okay.
It's about making that conscious choice to show up, to be present in the relationship, rather than just getting swept away by that initial,
That initial infatuation.
Exactly, exactly.
I've definitely had my fair share of those whirlwind romances that fizzled out as quickly as they ignited. So what makes that different from the kind of love Fromm's advocating for?
Well, Fromm would say it's about going beyond that surface level,
Yeah.
beyond that initial attraction. It's about really seeing the other person fully, accepting their flaws and imperfections,
Right.
and choosing to love them anyway.
Okay, so that sounds like a daily practice,
Yes,
not a destination.
exactly. He says it requires discipline, concentration, a willingness to work through the challenges.
Right.
It's not about finding someone who completes you.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to share your life with someone, imperfections and all.
It makes you wonder, though, can we really cultivate this kind of mature, lasting love in a world that often feels, I don't know, so superficial and driven by self-interest? I mean, from himself, he seemed, kind of skeptical about modern society's impact on our ability to love, right?
He was he was definitely a critic of what he saw as the dehumanizing forces of capitalism with its emphasis on consumerism, profit over people.
Right.
He worried that this mentality was eroding our capacity for genuine connection.
That reminds me of something Fromm said about how we often use like sentimental love in movies or songs as a kind of escape from the challenges of real relationships.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
like we'd rather just watch, a 2-hour romance than put in the work to cultivate something real in our own lives.
That's such a great point. And Fromm would say it's that same avoidance, that desire for a quick fix that actually prevents us from experiencing the true depths of love.
Yeah.
Because we've bought into this idea that love should be easy,
Right. Effortless.
effortless, exactly, when in reality it requires effort, patience, a willingness to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we take anything away from this deep dive into the art of loving, it's that love is not a passive experience.
It's
It's not something that just happens to us.
right.
It's an active choice we make every single day in big ways and small.
And it's a choice that requires courage, vulnerability, a willingness to step outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah, it's about showing up, being present, and choosing love even when it's hard.
Exactly. And, maybe, just maybe, as Fromm suggests, that's where the real adventure begins.
Ooh, I like that. That's where the real adventure begins. This has been amazing. So many things to think about. To our listeners, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive. We'll see you in the next one.